The detective closed his file folder and looked at me. His expression was tired. "Ms. Parker, we have enough for a restraining order and criminal stalking charges. He won't be able to come within 500 feet of you." I nodded. I should have felt relief. Instead, I just felt hollow, exhausted. Like I'd been running for months and finally stopped, but my body didn't know how to rest anymore. Let me back up to how this nightmare started. 4 months ago, a guy named Derek moved into the townhouse next to mine in this Phoenix suburb. I noticed him on moving day, mid-30s, tall, kept to himself. He seemed harmless, normal. That's what scared me most later, realizing I'd lived next to him for weeks and never suspected a thing. Then I started hearing this buzzing sound outside my bedroom window at night. The first time, I thought it was a mosquito caught between the screen and the glass. I tried to ignore it, but it came back. Same time every night, around 2 a.m. The second night, I was annoyed enough to get up and look. That's when I saw it hovering there in the darkness. Small red and green lights blinking like eyes. A drone. And even from my second floor window, I could see the camera lens catching the glow from the streetlight below. It was pointed directly at me. My heart started racing. I grabbed my phone to record it, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. By the time I picked it up and opened the camera app, the drone was gone, just disappeared into the night. I stood there in my dark bedroom, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow outside my window made my breath catch. The next morning, Derek knocked on my door. I'd barely slept, so I looked through the peephole first. He was holding a package. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. "This got delivered to my place by mistake," he said, smiling. The package had my name on it. I'd been waiting for it all week. "Thanks," I said, reaching for it through the gap. But he didn't let go right away. He held onto it, forcing me to tug a little, and our hands touched. "You know, Sophie, I've been wanting to meet you." I froze. I hadn't told him my name. He must have seen the fear flash across my face because he quickly added, "It's on the label." He finally released the package, and I saw my name printed there. But something about the way he said it, like he'd known it before he saw the label, made my skin crawl. "We should grab coffee sometime," he continued. "I think we'd be compatible." The way he said that word, compatible, like he'd already run calculations, like he'd already decided we belonged together. "I'm really busy," I managed to say. "But thanks for the package." I started to close the door. "I'll see you around, Sophie," he said. He was still smiling. I closed the door, locked it, and immediately set my phone down on the hallway table while I put the package on the counter. My hands were shaking. I went to the kitchen to get water, trying to calm down, and that's when I realized I'd left my phone in the hallway for maybe 3 minutes, long enough for someone standing outside to reach through the mail slot, grab it, and return it. When I came back, it was exactly where I'd left it, but something felt wrong. The screen was slightly smudged, like someone had been holding it. I told myself I was being paranoid. People don't just steal phones and return them in minutes. That would be crazy. But I kept thinking about it. Over the next week, the drone came back every night, always around 2 a.m. I started keeping my phone ready, recording, but the pattern was always the same. The moment I grabbed my phone, it would dart away into the darkness, like someone was watching me through it, like they knew exactly when I was about to record. I checked my window view during the day. I could see Derek's balcony from mine, and there it was, a small charging station with a drone docked on it. Right there, in plain sight. That's when I decided to go to the police. I went to the station on a Tuesday afternoon. I explained everything to the officer at the desk. The drone, the weird introduction where Derek already knew my name, how unsafe I felt. I told him about the charging station visible from my window. The officer listened, typing notes into his computer, but I could tell from his expression he wasn't taking it seriously. "Ma'am, I understand your concern," he said finally. "But unless you have footage of the drone actually filming you, we can't get a warrant. Lots of people own drones for legitimate photography. The fact that it flies near your window could be coincidental." "It comes to my window every night at 2 a.m., I said. "That's not coincidental." He looked uncomfortable. "Did you get video of it?" With a timestamp showing the pattern ? I hadn't. Every time I tried, it flew away before I could capture anything useful. "Here's what I suggest," he said, pushing a pamphlet across the desk. "Set your phone up to record all night. Document the pattern, get clear footage showing the drone outside your window, the timestamp, everything. Then come back and we'll have grounds to investigate." I took the pamphlet and left. I felt defeated walking back to my car, but also determined. Fine. If they needed proof, I'd get them proof. I went home and bought blackout curtains online. Express delivery. They arrived the next day and I installed them immediately, keeping them closed at all times. If Derek wanted to watch me, he'd have to find another way. I also set up my phone on a tripod facing my window, recording all night, every night. I figured even with the curtains closed, if the drone came to the window, the sound would be on the recording. For a week, nothing happened. No buzzing, no drone. I started to think maybe the curtains had worked. Perhaps he'd given up. And that's when the photos started appearing. I came home from work on a Wednesday and found something slipped under my door, a photo in a clear plastic sleeve. I picked it up and my stomach dropped. It showed me and Derek together at what looked like an upscale restaurant, sitting across from each other, both of us smiling like we were on a date, candlelight between us, wine glasses, the whole romantic setup. Except I'd never been to dinner with him. I'd never been anywhere with him except that 30-second interaction at my door. I looked closer. The photo was professionally printed, high quality, and I could tell it was fake. When I really studied it, the lighting on my face didn't quite match the background, and the edges around my hair were too sharp. But if you just glanced at it, you'd think it was real. He'd taken my face from one of my Instagram photos. I recognized which one, a selfie I'd posted 2 months ago, and photoshopped us together. The attention to detail was disturbing. He'd even matched the angle of my face to the lighting in his fabricated scene. More photos appeared over the next 2 weeks. One under my door, one taped to my car windshield, one slipped into my mailbox. Each one showed us together in a different location. A beach, the Eiffel Tower, a hiking trail. He was building a fake relationship timeline, complete with exotic vacations we'd never taken. Then the notes started. The first one said, "Thinking about last night. You looked beautiful. Can't wait to see you again. Last night, I'd been home alone watching Netflix." The second note said, "Hope your migraine is better. I know you hate taking medicine, but sometimes you have to take care of yourself." 3 days earlier, I'd posted on my Instagram story about having a headache, just a casual mention. But he'd been paying attention, taking notes. The third note said, "Your Amazon package arrived today. I signed for it so it wouldn't get stolen. You're so forgetful sometimes. That's okay, I remember everything. That one scared me more than the others, because an Amazon package had arrived that day, and when I checked my doorbell camera, the building had installed smart doorbells at every entrance last month. I could see Derek in the footage, standing at my door, holding a box, then taking it to his unit. My package, that I never got." The fourth note said, "Don't forget your mom's birthday next week. Should we go in together on a gift?" My mom's birthday was next week. I'd never mentioned it to him, but I'd posted about it on Facebook 2 years ago, and the post was still up. He'd been digging through my social media, memorizing details from years of posts. I kept every photo, every note. I documented everything with timestamps and photos. And then I went back to the police. This time I brought a folder with everything printed and organized. The officer who'd helped me before looked through it all carefully. "These photos are clearly edited," I said, showing him the telltale signs. He's building this fake relationship. And these notes, he's referencing things from my private social media, my Amazon deliveries, my health, family birthdays. The officer looked concerned now. "This is definitely escalating," he admitted. "But here's the legal issue. We need proof he's the one creating and leaving these. He could claim someone else is doing this. He could even claim you're making this up." "Why would I make this up?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "I'm not saying you are," he said quickly. "I'm explaining what his lawyer would argue in court. We need ironclad proof. Video of him leaving these items at your door. Him admitting to it. Something definitive." "What about the package he took?" "That's theft." "Did you ask him for it?" I hadn't. The thought of knocking on his door, being in a space where he could close it behind me, made my skin crawl. Without you requesting it back, he could claim he was holding it for safekeeping. The officer explained. "Look, I believe you. But I need to build a case that will actually stick. Go to your building manager. See if they have more comprehensive camera coverage. Get footage of him leaving items at your door. Document everything. And if he approaches you directly, record it. We need evidence that will hold up in court." I left feeling frustrated. I was doing everything right. I was documenting, reporting, following procedures. But the system moved so slowly, required so much proof, while Derek could just keep escalating. And that's when I remembered the building's camera system. When we'd gotten the smart doorbells installed, the management company had mentioned they were also upgrading other security cameras, the parking lot, the common areas, the back entrances, and all the footage was stored for 30 days. I made an appointment with our building manager, Mrs. Chen. I'd always liked her. She was efficient, no nonsense, actually cared about the residents. When I walked into her office, I was carrying my folder of evidence. I sat down and showed her everything. The photos, the notes, the timeline of escalation. Her expression got more and more concerned as she looked through it all. "I've noticed him acting strange lately," she said slowly. "He's always in the mailroom at the exact same time as you, even though the mail carrier delivers to different sections of the building at different times. His mail comes in the morning, yours comes in the afternoon, but he's there when you are, every single time." My stomach turned. I hadn't even noticed that pattern. "And he requested replacement access fobs for his unit 3 times in the past 2 months, she continued, pulling up records on her computer. "Each time claiming he lost the previous one. That's unusual. Most residents never need a replacement at all." She clicked through more screens. "Our electronic access system logs every time a fob is used on any door. Date, time, which door, which fob. It's for security." She pulled up a log and her face went pale. "His fob was used to try your door. Twice. 3 a.m. on a Tuesday and 4 a.m. on a Friday. The system shows access denied. Your lock rejected his fob. But he tried." My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. "Did it work?" "No, thank God. But he tried. He was testing whether his fob would work on your lock." I thought I might throw up. All those nights I'd been sleeping, Derek had been outside my door trying to get in. Let me pull the parking lot footage, Mrs. Chen said, her voice tight with anger now. She was clicking through files quickly. If he's been flying that drone and your window faces the parking lot side of the building. She found it. The timestamp read 2:14 a.m. on a night 3 weeks ago. There was Derek standing in the parking lot holding a drone controller. You could see him looking up toward the building, toward where my window would be on the second floor. His thumbs moved on the controls. The drone wasn't visible in the frame, but you could see him operating it, watching the screen on his controller. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video I'd managed to capture that same night, just a few seconds before the drone had darted away. The timestamp matched exactly. 2:14 a.m. There was my window, the drone hovering outside, its camera lens reflecting light. That son of a bitch, Mrs. Chen said quietly. She pulled footage from the front entrance cameras next, and there he was, multiple nights waiting until late, past midnight, then approaching my door with items in his hand. The photos, the notes. You could see him looking around nervously before sliding things under my door. This is more than enough, Mrs. Chen said. I'm calling the police right now, and I want him out of this building. The police came that afternoon. 2 officers. One of them was wearing a body cam. Mrs. Chen had specifically requested it when she called, knowing how these cases sometimes went. I didn't see what happened next. I only heard about it later, after everything was over. But apparently, when the officers knocked on Derek's door and asked about the drone, he didn't deny anything. He seemed proud. Would you like to see my documentation? He'd asked them. He pulled up folders on his laptop. Hundreds of photos and videos. Most were from before I'd installed the blackout curtains. Me sitting on my couch, making dinner, working at my desk in my bedroom. Some showed me in pajamas, tank tops, once in just a towel after a shower. The officer's report noted that he'd cataloged everything. Dates, times, what I was wearing, what I was doing, like I was a research subject. There were also screen recordings from my laptop. Video of me working, completely unaware I was being watched. Video of me on video calls with friends. Video of me crying one night after a bad day at work. And GPS logs from my phone showing everywhere I'd gone for 3 months. My daily route to work, the grocery store I preferred, my therapist's office, even the exact parking spot I used at my gym. I'm documenting our relationship, Derek had told them, according to the report. Sophie and I are together. This is normal. Every couple takes photos. The officer apparently asked him, has Sophie agreed to be in a relationship with you? She's shy about going public, Derek had answered. She doesn't want to rush things. But we're together. I see her every day. I know her routines, her schedule, what she likes to eat, when she wakes up and goes to bed. That's what couples do. They know each other. Has Sophie ever told you she's your girlfriend? The officer had pressed. Derek's expression had changed then. According to the body cam footage I saw weeks later during the court proceedings, his smile had faltered. She doesn't have to say it. I can tell she feels the same way. Why else would she keep her curtains open for me to see? She wanted me to watch. It was her way of inviting me in. That's when they told him he needed to come to the station. That's when they arrested him. The detective ran Derek's information through the national database and found something that made my blood run cold. 2 years ago, in Seattle, a woman named Jennifer Martinez had gotten a restraining order against him. She'd been his coworker at a tech startup. He'd installed spyware on her work computer, tracked her location through her phone, even hacked into her home Wi-Fi network to access her smart TV camera. She'd gone to the police, pressed charges. But his lawyers had argued he was learning cybersecurity for his job and didn't have criminal intent. The jury couldn't reach a verdict. Hung jury, case dismissed. Jennifer quit her job and moved to another state. Derek got fired but faced no other consequences. 6 months later, he moved to Phoenix. The detective told me all this with barely contained anger. If those charges had stuck in Seattle, he said, Derek would be in prison right now. He wouldn't have been here to do this to you. He explained my options. Criminal stalking charges would take months to prosecute. The trial could be a year away. And in Arizona, for a first-time offender, and legally, Derek was first time since the Seattle charges were dismissed, the penalties were usually probation, maybe a year in county jail. The computer hacking might get us federal charges, the detective continued. That's FBI territory and those carry heavier sentences. But federal cases take even longer. Years sometimes. In the meantime, you need immediate protection. He recommended filing for an emergency restraining order. That would be immediate, within 48 hours. Derek would have to move out, stay away from me, my work, anywhere I regularly went. Then we build the criminal case while you're protected, he said. And you should consider a civil lawsuit. Invasion of privacy, emotional distress, cyber harassment, that's where you can actually get damages. Make him pay for what he's done. I did both. The restraining order hearing was the next morning. I brought everything, the photos, the notes, all the security footage, my own video of the drone, the police body cam footage. The judge reviewed it all while I sat there, my hands clasped so tightly my fingers ached. It took her less than an hour. She granted the order. Derek had 48 hours to vacate the building. He couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my workplace, my gym, my coffee shop, anywhere I'd listed on the protective order. If he violated it even once, he'd be arrested immediately. The property manager served him the eviction notice that evening. I watched from my window 2 days later as he loaded boxes into his car, never once looking toward my unit. I should have felt relief. Instead, I just felt numb. The detective recommended I have a cybersecurity expert scan all my devices. I made an appointment for the next day, taking the morning off work. The expert found spyware on my laptop almost immediately. This was installed remotely, he explained, probably through a phishing email. Do you remember getting anything from your building management around 4 months ago? I thought back. Derek had moved in 4 months ago. And yes, about a week later, I'd gotten an email saying the building was updating its emergency contact system and asking me to verify my information through a link. I'd clicked it, entered my information, never thought twice about it. That was it, the expert said. Once you clicked, he had access to everything. Your files, your emails, your browsing history. He could turn on your camera whenever he wanted. But the most disturbing discovery was on my phone. This is stalkerware, he said, pulling up a hidden app in my phone settings. Someone installed it with administrator permissions. It's been running in the background, invisible. Whoever did this had your phone for just a couple of minutes, long enough to install it and grant it accessibility access. And that's when I remembered that first morning, the package, how I'd set my phone down in the hallway while I took the package to the kitchen, how it had seemed slightly smudged when I came back. 3 minutes, while my back was turned. 3 minutes was all it took. How long has this been active? I asked, even though I didn't want to know the answer. He scrolled through the app's hidden logs. 3 months. Since about a week after he moved in. It's been capturing screenshots, recording your keystrokes, accessing your texts and emails, even tracking your location. Everything you've typed, every conversation, every photo, he's been seeing all of it in real time. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Everything. Every conversation with my friends about him. Every time I'd texted my mom saying I was scared. Every therapy session I'd scheduled through the online portal where I'd written notes about feeling unsafe. The app had even been tracking my location. He knew everywhere I went, everyone I saw. He'd seen it all. The violation of that, knowing he'd read my most private thoughts, my most vulnerable moments, knowing he'd tracked every place I went, was somehow worse than knowing he'd watched me sleep. Because I'd felt safe in those text messages. Safe when I drove to therapy or met friends for coffee, thinking I was alone. I'd been honest, and he'd been watching every word, tracking every movement. For weeks after the restraining order was granted, I could barely function. I took FMLA leave from work. I couldn't sleep in my apartment. Every shadow looked like a drone. Every sound was him trying to get in. I stayed with my parents for a while, but even there, I kept thinking he'd find me, that he'd somehow track me. My therapist said this was normal, that after a violation like this, your sense of safety in the world is shattered. It takes time to rebuild. But time moved so slowly. The criminal trial date was set for 6 months away. 6 months of waiting. 6 months of knowing I'd have to see him again. Testify. Relive everything. My therapist suggested I find community. People who'd understand what I was going through. I searched online for local support groups for stalking victims. There was nothing. No resources, no community. So I decided to create one. It took months of planning. I had to wait until I felt stable enough to even think about it. But eventually, with my therapist's support, I started making calls, finding a space at the community center, getting the paperwork filed to make it official, creating a website, reaching out to domestic violence organizations for guidance. 7 months after the restraining order was granted, I held the first meeting of Phoenix Privacy Advocates. 5 people showed up. We sat in a circle in a room that felt too big, and everyone looked as nervous as I felt. But then one woman started talking about her ex-boyfriend, who'd put a GPS tracker on her car, and another talked about finding hidden cameras in her apartment. And suddenly we were all sharing our stories. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. We meet twice a month now. We've grown to 30 regular members. We share legal resources, safety tips, the names of good lawyers and bad ones. Not only that, but we practice testifying. Because so many of these cases end up in court. And it helps to practice saying the hard things out loud with people who understand. We bring in experts on digital security, legal advocates, therapists who specialize in trauma. Last month, a woman came to our meeting. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her coffee. Her iPhone had been sending her notifications for days about an unknown AirTag moving with her. She'd finally found it tucked into the zipper lining of her purse. So small, she'd never have seen it without knowing to look. Her ex-boyfriend had been tracking her for months. Every coffee shop, every grocery store, every friend's house. He'd known everywhere she went. She'd thought it was coincidence, that she was being paranoid. We helped her file a police report. One of our members, a former cop, knew exactly what documentation she'd need. Another member, a lawyer, offered to represent her pro bono for a restraining order. I spent an hour teaching her how to scan her car, her other bags, everything she owned, for more tracking devices. When she left, she hugged me and started crying. I felt so crazy, she whispered, like I was making it all up, but you all believed me immediately. That moment made everything worth it. Derek's trial happened 9 months after his arrest. I had to testify. Had to sit in that courtroom, knowing he was 10 feet away from me, watching me. My hands shook the entire time. My therapist had warned me I might have a panic attack on the stand, and I did. Halfway through my testimony, I couldn't breathe, and the judge called a recess while I recovered in the hallway. But I finished. I said everything I needed to say. The jury found him guilty of criminal stalking, computer hacking, and invasion of privacy. Because of the computer crimes, the FBI got involved, and the charges got bumped to federal court. He's currently serving 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release with mandatory psychological treatment. It's not the 7 or 10 years I'd hoped for, but it's something. The civil lawsuit settled out of court. I can't talk about the terms because of the NDA, but I'll say this. It was enough to cover my therapy, my legal fees, the security system I installed in my new apartment, and the time I took off work. Enough to make starting Phoenix Privacy Advocates possible. But it didn't give me back my sense of safety. It's been 1 year and 4 months since Derek was arrested. I still check for drones every night before I close my curtains. I still cover every camera in my apartment with tape. I still scan my car and my bags for tracking devices. I still freeze when I hear buzzing sounds outside. Some nights, I dream about it. In the dreams, I'm in my bedroom, and I hear the buzzing. But when I look, there are dozens of drones hovering outside my window, all watching me, and I can't close the curtains fast enough. I wake up, gasping, my heart racing, and it takes minutes to remember. He's in prison. He can't hurt me anymore. But the fear doesn't care about logic. My therapist says I have PTSD. That's the official diagnosis. Post-traumatic stress disorder from prolonged stalking and invasion of privacy. We're working on it. Some days are better than others. The support group helps, knowing I'm not alone. Knowing that what happened to me wasn't unique. That there are patterns to this kind of abuse. That the system fails victims over and over in predictable ways. That knowledge doesn't fix the trauma, but it makes it feel less isolating. And when someone new comes to do it, meetings, scared and alone and convinced they're crazy for being afraid, I can tell them, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. What happened to you was real, and it wasn't your fault, and you deserved better from everyone who was supposed to help you. That matters. Being able to say that to someone and mean it. Being able to be the person I needed when this was happening to me. Derek gets out in 2.5 years. I try not to think about it. Try not to count down. But some part of me is always aware of it, ticking in the background like a clock I can't turn off. My therapist asks what I'll do when he's released. I don't know. The restraining order will still be in effect. He's not supposed to come anywhere near me. But restraining orders are just pieces of paper. They don't stop bullets. They don't stop someone determined enough. I'm trying to build a life that doesn't revolve around fear. Some days, I succeed. Some days, I go to work, meet friends for coffee, laugh at stupid things, feel almost normal. Other days, I hear a buzzing sound outside and I'm right back there, frozen in my bedroom, watching red and green lights blink in the darkness. That's the thing they don't tell you about situations like this. The legal system working, the arrest, the trial, the conviction, it doesn't fix the damage. It doesn't give you back what was taken. It just stops the immediate threat and leaves you to figure out how to live with what happened. I'm still figuring that out, but at least I'm not doing it alone anymore, and maybe that's enough.